Welcome home, all. It is Tuesday, April 7. Thank you for being here. Last week we did one show on the Wednesday. We will be here both normally on the Tuesdays and Thursdays at roughly about 6:30, and we've been pretty good about being on time for those days. If I change anything, I'll let you know. Obviously, in advance, we may add. I'm going to begin to add to the Supermex International Network, which we had before, where I had about 5, 6, 7 different originally programmed shows from different people, different backgrounds, different. I mean, we had some, had some in music, culture, politics, a little bit of everything. So we'll be growing like that again. I want to say sometime soon over this next, if not in April, but definitely into May and before the summer. We'll have more shows for you, again, from a variety of different perspectives and arenas to deal with, maybe even a sports show, if we can get to that. Before we get too far into tonight, I was really happy with how the March Women's History Month finished up and what we did there. I did post a list of all of the women that we acknowledged, named, and wanted to bring attention to for Women's History Month. All the Latinas, they were Mexican, they were Brazilian, Chilean, Latinas. And Latin is again derived from the language, so a lot of different countries represented, and I was really happy with that. And again, in a lot of different arenas, wasn't just one specific group. We had athletes, we had actresses, we had models, we had musicians, had I want to say civil rights, cultural. With Dolores Huerta was one of our first news anchors that we need to see more of on TV at the national level. So really, really happy with that. I'm not sure. I have an idea of what I'm going to do to follow up with that, to grow that a little bit more than just say Women's History Month, and what that means and what I'm going to do with it, so that Latin men, Hispanic men, Mexican men can show their appreciation and support for Hispanic women, Latin women, Mexican women that are doing their thing and doing it well. We need to give them more attention. I think, as a matter of fact, if you watched the national championship game for women, women's NC2AA championship was on, I want to say, the Sunday. And in that game, Sunday, UCLA beat South Carolina, who South Carolina has been having a run with their coach, Don Staley, tearing it up, winning titles left and right. But UCLA beat them for the first time ever, their first national title. One of their principal players, a young lady by the name of, I think it's Gabriela Jaquez, Mexican-American, Mexican-American female, kicking ass in basketball. And it kind of popped up on my feed. I saw that, reposted that into my socials to give her some attention. Obviously, after we had done the Women's History Month. But I'm going to say again, before I move on here, that Women's History Month should not just be a month. That's, and I'm not speaking to women here, as I've said before. I'm not female. I don't understand women. Have no problem saying that, because I don't. I'm not a female, I'm not a woman. I don't know it, don't get it. The most I can do is support them when they are doing their thing and doing it well. And so I'm talking to Mexican males, Mexican men, Hispanic men, Latinos in general. You don't have to. I'm not asking you to support women just out of hand, because I'm asking you to support women that are doing good work, doing good things, that they need our support, they need our growth, because it's not enough for women to support women. Men have to support women too. Okay? And if we do that, then we become way more balanced as a Mexican-American culture, and get rid of the negatives that are associated with it, that we don't support or allow our women to grow to their full capacity. It's garbage, and it's not what I want to see. And for those of you that are, again, my former students, my ex-wrestlers, fighters, etc., you know where I'm at with that. I've never been like that, and you would not have learned that from me. I'm literally equal opportunity to the fullest extent that way. Why would you want one half of the population not reaching their full potential? It's absolutely stupid. That's about as blunt as I can get, and about as simple and honest as I can get. It makes sense. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, I'll follow up with something in a video form. I know I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I'm going to do a specific video for YouTube and for platforms that just deals with, like, the hottest women in the world, Latinas, and the hottest Mexican women. Hot, again, not just, beautiful, but they're hot at what they do. They're hot at who they are. Get it? So women to watch. So I'm going to follow up with that. I'll let you guys know as I do that. But I can't do that myself, not to the capacity or the quality that I want. So I'm going to need to get some help, somebody to help me do that, so it can be a really great video that we put out and that I can be proud of, that goes out and it supports what my belief is and how we support women. Okay. So we are April 7th and it is Tuesday. And as the title, as the title reads, it is Taco Tuesday. It is Taco Tuesday. So right prior to coming on tonight, 6:30, I want to say roughly around 4:00 Pacific time, a little bit in that range, within about an hour of the imposed deadline by the President Donald Trump, the traitor. He imposed that deadline on the Iranian people, or, the threats. And I'll say it, it's been going on for a while. It's been going on this whole time. He threatens all the time. Now, that tactic, that method, like ramp it up, make it sound bad, make it sound really ugly. I'm going to do this to you. And then someone pulls back and I don't want them to do that to me. So I guess I'll agree. I guess I'll negotiate. I guess I'll go with it. That doesn't work at this level globally. And I'm going to say it point blank. Okay. I'm not Iranian. I'm not from the Middle East in any capacity. But I do know historically, and I'll add a little sidebar. You ever want to watch some tough sons of bitches? Watch Iranian wrestlers at the world level, especially in Greco-Roman wrestling, especially in Greco. Okay, because I'm a little partial to Greco. I love Greco myself. That's what my son won a national title in, what I coached for a long time and developed. It is a tough sport. It is about as tough as it gets. Okay, and Iranians are just some of the best, toughest sons of bitches in the world when it comes to wrestling. They are tough people. My point in bringing that up is that they're a very old culture. They're one of the oldest on the planet culturally because of the region, not say specifically Iranian, the name, or Persian, or all the other groups of people that have gone through that particular region of the world that conquered it or stayed or settled, etc. Because it is literally the crossroads of the world when it comes to civilizations, the Middle East in general. The Iranian and Iraq land mass of countries is where empires go and take hold and die. It's been going on for thousands of years. It is the most sought after property, piece of land in the world. My point is they've been doing it a long time. The people that actually live there, that grow there, that have ancestry there, they've been doing this a long time. Do you think we're the first would-be conqueror, the United States? We're the first would-be conqueror of the Iranian people? That'd be absolutely stupid of you to think, because historically, factually, it's not the case. These people have survived for literally thousands of years, 4,000 to 5,000 years. In excess, you can make the argument of 5,000 years since the dawn of recorded history. They've existed in that particular region of the world for well over 5,000 years in civilized form of some kind. Empires, nation states, etc. People, ethnicity, race. They've been around a long time and they've survived a long time and they're still there. Nota bene, you might want to pay attention and learn from the lessons of history that if they've been around that long, they might not be afraid when some new would-be conqueror, and I hate saying that, but it's the truth. We've got a cosplay president, cosplay commander-in-chief that thinks we can just go conquer this world and do what we want with it. But as history tells us, as history informs us, as history educates us, they've never been conquered. Not in any measure for a long period of time or forever. Clearly, they wait everybody out. And they don't wait you out in terms of hours or days or weeks or months or even years. The Iranian people in that particular part of the world have the ability to wait you out, you would-be conquerors, you badasses, you tough guys, they have the ability to weigh you out in terms of generations and centuries and, dare I say, yeah, I'll dare, millennia. They'll wait you out. And their patience is as close to infinite as you're going to get historically. So when we threaten them, I say we, obviously not me personally, but when we threaten them, it doesn't work the same way as it may on someone else. It just doesn't. They don't care. They're willing to die for their country, their beliefs, who they are. They don't have a problem with it all. They don't care. Go ahead, do it. So when you have Donald the Traitor Trump, who couldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight, a guy that it doesn't know what it is to actually fight for himself, to actually fight, to get in a squabble, a scrum, some pleito, a dark alley. This guy doesn't know what that is. He's never had to fight a damn thing, let alone for himself, let alone himself fighting. You can make tough guy threats, but the threats don't work if the other side is willing to die for what they believe in, whatever it is. And I'm not even saying they're believing in something good or bad. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. The point is, history informs, history educates that the Iranian people, the people that live in that region, that particular part of the world, are not only okay with, but they are quite literally willing to die. So threats don't work on them the same way. And Trump, the traitor, has threatened them multiple times. I'm going to give you a deadline. If you don't do this by this, then I'm going to do something. They don't care. So as we rolled into this week, I said, as always, watch into the weekend, what happens, where it goes. Here we go. Tuesday. See how that works out? I think it's the universe tending to act as it should. It is Taco Tuesday. Trump always chickens out. So as of a few hours ago, about an hour prior, roughly a few minutes here or there, an hour prior to his imposed deadline on the Iranian people, I'm going to bomb you back into the Stone Age. I'm going to do this. It's a negotiating tactic. I get it. Wink, wink. And he tacoed again. And now there's a ceasefire. Do you think the Iranian people give a shit? Do you think they care? They're laughing. They're literally yanking the chain of this idiot because they don't care. And in a negotiation, in a bargain, if the other side doesn't care, it's kind of hard to negotiate and bargain with. So let's get into the mechanics and the particulars. I don't like doing shows with just, say, opinion and an assessment after the fact. I like providing you with data and facts and things that are objectively true because they were done and they're in evidence. They're in the public record. So as we went through the weekend, we saw the Sunday, which for most of us, that celebrate, obviously, Easter Sunday. The Lord has risen prior to that, and we get into the Easter Sunday, right? And people are out enjoying their vacation, enjoying their weekend with family, etc. Good food, good friends, good family. And the President of the United States, our president, the 45th and the 47th president of this country, posted on Easter Sunday. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. This was on Easter Sunday. One of, if not the holiest days in the Christian calendar for all Christians in the world, in the whole damn world. This is what, in his own words, the President of the United States said. Tuesday, and this is Sunday, Tuesday, another imposed deadline. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Of course, because he loves to hyperbolize and exaggerate. He's easily the most hyperbolic and exaggerating shit-talking president in the history of the United States. Period. Objectively true. Just listen, watch. It's all there. Easily true. There will be nothing like it. Of course there won't. There never is. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Exclamation point. Big letters. Praise be to Allah. More on that in a second. President Donald J. Trump. So because you almost have to, because I heard different views, takes, etc. And it's not super complicated. You know, it's one of two or both things. The praise be to Allah statement. I mean, I don't think this is that complicated. It's an assessment on my part, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so. If you think I am, so be it. Praise be to Allah. Does he believe in Allah? Obviously, he does not. He pretends to be a Christian. And I will say pretend, because he has no tenet of faith whatsoever, and definitely not observable or identifiable. Praise be to Allah. So why is he saying that? In essence, to be a smartass and to take a shot at Muslims in basically in that part of the world. But obviously, if you're Muslim in general, you don't have to be in Iran to take exception to a president, in essence, talking shit about your faith, your belief, your God. And so he just, in essence, insulted every Muslim on the planet. Now, here's the issue. If you're Christian, Catholics are Christians, or any other faith other than Muslim, let's do that. Let's be a little analytical here. Let's remove just the Muslim component because that's where the insult lies. Let's move that to the side. If you're any other religion, and you see that, some of you, if you're simple-minded and simpleton that way, may be okay with that. You might be okay with that because it's not your religion. It's not your faith. You may not even like Allah. You may not like Muslims in general. And that is your prerogative. That is your choice to do so. However, by doing that, our president, the president of the United States, makes distinction for a particular religion. In this case, distinction, what I mean is he's singling out and he's pointing at a particular religion, in this case, Allah and Muslims. There is no distinction whatsoever, good or bad, in the United States Constitution. To reiterate, I'll repeat, there is no, and the Constitution makes no distinction for any religion. Christian, Catholic, Protestant, you name it, it does not matter. Muslim, atheist, deist, whatever. The Constitution specifically does not make distinction for a religion because they wanted freedom of religion, meaning anybody can practice their religion in this country under this Constitution. So when a president takes a shot at one religion, he is no longer abiding by the Constitution because the Constitution was what provides freedom of religion to all of its nation's citizens, right? And you're like, well, he's just taking shots at Iranians. It's a faith. He chose to pick on and pick out Muslims in particular. In particular. That's constitutional. Okay, and I know some of you don't care, but some of us swore an oath, and some of us care about the Constitution. And for the record, I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes, or I've not, not been totally legal. I've said before, probably my biggest were the 2 DUIs I got when I first got out of the Army in the early 90s. Okay, got out of the Army and I got a couple DUIs, 92 and 95, I want to say. So not perfect. I'm not saying that I'm not perfect in the sense that I abide by my Constitution, but I've made mistakes and I've broken the law. But I have never wavered in my support of the principles of the Constitution, and definitely on the big strokes, the freedoms, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, etc. All of the early parts to the Bill of Rights, first 10 amendments to the Constitution. I've never not been on board and 100% down with what those are. So our president, again, violates the Constitution. And you can have that debate with me if you want. We can do it. But this is his language. These are his words, not mine. I'd rather he not have said anything about any religion. Been more believable. And then, of course, this is Easter Sunday. And he acted like an idiot, talking politics and war at the White House for the Easter rollout. I can't remember what it's actually called, but every year the White House has an Easter event for kids. And this idiot was talking about war and talking about, political enemies in front of kids. In front of kids. He doesn't have the common, if not the good goddamn sense to shut the hell up. And just be with kids because he can't. He's the sorriest excuse for a human being, I think, in existence in that office. If not the ugliest American, I think I've said that. The ugliest American we've probably ever had. It's just not there. He is stupid. And I'll argue that lucidly and with clarity. He is stupid. But he's amoral, immoral, and unethical as all hell. So all of that combined into one. Why the hell would you want him around kids? Seriously. I because we have no choice, because he holds the office and that's what we do. Bad. My point, though, is another he threatened. And then he says, open the fucking strait. This is the president of the United States posting this on Easter Sunday. And if you're in the Trump cult, you're probably not having an issue with it. You like it. Yeah, he cusses. Cool. I don't know about you, but I ain't cool with that when it comes to a president. I expect a higher standard of conversation, of language, of communication. I actually expect a standard. These are supposed to be the brightest people, the best people, et cetera. And I know, go ahead. A lot of them have not been good. So be it. But they've all held at least a minimum standard. Certain things you just do not do. Even though it's not law written, you just don't do certain things. Like taking to social media and cussing your ass off in front of the whole world to see. We're talking politics and war in front of kids on Easter Sunday. There has to be some standard, some minimum standard for any president, at least going forward. So I had issue with that. I'll read it one more time. This is the comment on Easter Sunday. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald Trump. One of the stupidest communications by a president in presidential history, period. And if there were a top 10, he occupies probably all 10. At least. On the following day, yesterday, I won't go into the full tweet on that, or the Truth Social, whatever the hell it is you call them. But basically, he followed up and threatened Iran and threatened that he would, in essence, remove their entire civilization. Now, as the comments read, this is a sitting United States president threatening to, and he said, watch, threatening to, in essence, what would be, commit a genocide against a particular people. That's not just unconstitutional, that's immoral. That is against humanity. It would also be a war crime. And I've said that before, that I want him tried as soon as possible. I don't even want to wait till after the damn presidency and he dies. Okay, I want it done now. I don't know how we do that, obviously. We can't, or we're not getting it done, because this Congress doesn't have a spine. Let me make sure I'm clear. Not this Congress. Republicans in the Congress do not have a spine, because they are allowing them to get away with it. The Democrats are doing their part because that's all they can do. But they need Republicans, because Republicans control the majority in both the House and the Senate. And if Republicans in the Congress do not want to do anything about Donald Trump, then nothing is going to get done, because they're the only branch of government that can do something. And if they don't, then nothing is done. So threatening to eliminate an entire population of people That's a new low. And this is not even low. This is like, it's from Bizarro World. It's not, doesn't make sense. It does not follow non sequitur. It does not follow the presidency of the United States. It does not follow who we are as a people in the United States. Threatening to just kill and remove the Iranian people, the Iranian state, the Iranian country, Iranian government. And yes, some of the comments in particular, him talking about bridges, factories, water, I can go on and on, but those are civilian. And that is legally the definition of a war crime by Geneva Convention, by which the whole world is governed and has to abide by. If he were to do that, he would be committing war crimes. And so let me get into the meat of today's conversation. And I think I am going to keep it tight today. We'll be done in a 10, 15-minute window here, so I don't go too long. But if he gives those orders and he's just threatening, right? Let's say for the sake of argument that they're just threats. I've already stated the Iranian people are not going to be threatened that way. They don't care. They're willing to die. Period. Okay? Most of you aren't out there, and if you're in the Trump land, if you're a cult member, you're not willing to die. Oh, I take that back. There might be some cult members that are willing to die for Trump. We've seen that kind of, okay? But in general, most of you cult members, most of the Trump people out there are not willing to die for your beliefs that way. You're not. You'd rather see other people die for you. I've seen a lot of that, and I've heard a lot of that. I see a lot posted online about a lot of that. Real tough on war, sending people to go fight when you won't send your own ass to go fight. And I don't give a shit if you're older and you're past a certain age of military service. If you're so badass and willing to fight, there's a war in Russia and Ukraine right now, and they'll take anybody. How do I know? Because I've actually looked into it. The military age for service, I think they moved it to 42 years old, meaning you can be 41 or 42 years old going in and serve your country. You can be that old. And for the record, I'm well past that. But at 40, I was still pretty fit and pretty strong. I would be capable, okay? It's a different world that way. We last a little bit longer. I think that's generally understood. We take care of our bodies. We're a little more athletic, et cetera, in a good way, okay? But it isn't the people that are willing to send the ones to go die for their beliefs that are actually willing to die for their beliefs. And Trump is by far their leader that way. He is not willing to die for his beliefs. He's willing for your sons and daughters to die for his beliefs. That's in evidence. That's easily provable. And that's the case because Americans have already died for Donald Trump's beliefs, for Donald Trump's wants, for Donald Trump's deflection from the Epstein files, the Trumpstein files. We've already seen that. That's in evidence. There's no debate there. It's easy. We've seen it already. Okay, so I'm going to give a little bit of hope, after the tweet or the Truth Social thing on the Monday, threatening that by tomorrow at 5:00, if you don't do this, Iran, then I'm going to do this. He tacoed again, the ultimate taco. I say it's the ultimate taco, and for the record, he can taco again. He tacos all the time. He gives that taco up like you can't believe. He really likes giving that taco. But I think this is the ultimate taco. This one here, this one in particular, because he's been doing it. It's been building. It's been growing. And the threat of annihilation, the threat of obliteration, the threat of a genocide on a particular people, a specific people, is about as escalated as it's going to get in comments regarding threats from a military or its commander. There's not much more you can say. What else are you going to say? We're going to remove you, a whole civilization. We're just going to kill you and remove you. There's nothing beyond that. And for the record, Iranians are laughing their ass off because not only did he not do it, they knew he wouldn't do it. Taco. So this is the ultimate taco. This is the ultimate taco right here. because there really isn't anything else. I'm listening. When we're dealing with Trump, there's always something stupid he can do. True. But there is nothing beyond wiping out an entire civilization. There's nothing else. There's nothing left. There's nothing more. So this is the ultimate taco. He gave his taco today on Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. And now going forward, I mean, if you're Iranian, if you're the Iranian leadership and people, like, go ahead, do it. You said you're going to do last time, do it this time. And the problem with that is that what if at some point he does attempt, and stay with me now, because this is the meat of the program tonight. This is the meat. Specifically for me, because of my background, prior service, vet, U.S. Army infantry, and I make that distinction for a reason. This is the meat of the show tonight because we've already seen multiple generals resign. Bottom line, it's a firing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're seeing and hearing that they're resigning, they resign because they have no choice. They resign because they cannot comply with what their leadership is asking of them. That is the President of the United States, and that is Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. They're getting orders that they're not willing to comply with. And I have stated on this show before, months ago, when some of the other stuff was going on, leading up to the boats in the Caribbean, the Venezuela invasion. We invaded a country and killed their people to take their president. That's an invasion, violation. That's a war crime. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. Against the Geneva Convention. So where we are now is if he gives the order, in essence, to, let's just say, like, arbitrarily bomb the hell out of the entire country. We've already killed women and children, and I will say we, even though it wasn't me that gave the order. But I'm an American. And those Iranian people that saw their women, their wives and daughters, mothers and sisters obliterated at that school of girls, that is on us. Not saying it's your fault specifically, directly, but it is our fault as a whole. And the sooner we start taking responsibility for all of it as a whole, the sooner we hold this sack of shit excuse for a president responsible. And again, obviously not just one side. And I'm not talking about a left or a right or a Republican or Democrat or whatever. I'm talking about the grouping. And it just so happens that, yes, most of them are Republican in the Congress, conservative that way, not really conservative, but in that way. Until they do something, he's going to continue. So again, here's the meat of it. If he gives the order, Pete Hegseth will turn around and give that order to Chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Army, the Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And the Joint Chiefs means the 4 branches of our military, 5 Coast Guard, and then the Space Force. So all of the heads of those respective branches, you have a Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's the one over all of them. Pete Hegseth talks to him, gives him the order, tells him you got to execute it, go get it done. Then at that point, if it is an unlawful order, meaning you're targeting civilian targets and people, or we'll say generically as a whole, that you're going to wipe out mass amounts of civilians, then it is on our nation's leadership, and I'm not talking about the piece of garbage at the top and Pete Hegseth, that cosplay Secretary of Defense idiot. It isn't those two. It's our military commanders that are obligated by their oath, when they swear their oath to the Constitution, they are obligated and legally bound to not obey unlawful orders. And they have to say no. And as I say that to you tonight, you need to consider and wonder why so many of our nation's top military have been resigning and are currently resigning and are no longer in those positions. I'm going to hazard a guess here and say that they are saying no, that they are refusing to do certain things that they are being commanded to. in which case then the Secretary of Defense asks for the resignation because they will not comply with their orders. And they submit the resignations, including this past week, Randy George, talked a little bit about him, Army Chief of Staff, decorated, phenomenal career in service to this country, gave his entire adult life to this country. He's gone. So this is going on. We will find out about it later. We will find out more as time goes on. We'll definitely find out everything eventually. Maybe not right away, not right now when we need it, but we will ultimately find out everything. And I'm really, really certain that a lot of what I'm telling you is the truth. Specifically that they're receiving orders and they're not willing to comply because those orders are unlawful. And so they have to say no. Because when you swear the oath to the Constitution, you do not swear an oath to a politician, a president, an individual of any kind. You do not. Your oath is to the Constitution and the principles upon which this country was founded. That is what you swear your oath to. When you raise your hand and you enter this country's service that way, willing to die for it, as I was and as a lot of others are currently right now, willing to die for this country and its principles, not for an individual, not for a president, not for a 5-time draft dodging sack of shit that there's an excuse for a president. We don't sign up for that. We don't swear an oath to that. There might be some that might be okay with it, but the overwhelming, and this is what I'm giving you tonight, my audience, the overwhelming percentage of men and women in uniform are with me there. We are in the majority. So I'm going to wrap up here, but I'm going to give you reason for optimism in this ugly time of not having a lot of optimism. I do think that our commanders and generals will say no to some of the worst things that are clearly illegal and unlawful. And then it's about working backward from that to see what they will allow. That's my optimism to you. I don't know how that plays out because we're engaged in it right now. We're in the middle of it right now. So I don't know because I can't predict that way, but I can predict in general what our best commanders, the very best of us, the very best of our nation that occupy these positions after a lifetime of giving their ass and their life to this country. I'm gonna go out not very far on a limb and say that I think they will say no to a lot of these things, if not all of these things that they're asking them to do. I'm optimistic about that. And for the record, I'm optimistic because I think we're already seeing it. We're seeing them say no. That's why there are so many resignations. That's not a coincidence. That's not something that's normal. You don't see this many military commanders at those levels, general and flag officers at the highest levels of our military command, removed or resigning. And as I say that for the record, it is a depletion and diminution, a weakening of our service and our force to lose these people, to lose them, to have them removed. It weakens us. Yes, they'll be replaced by others that are probably good and probably competent, but younger and not as experienced. Donald Trump has weakened our country and its military like no president has in our nation's history. Not like this. It's not even close. And that's a historical fact. Okay, I do have a few minutes that there was something that I wanted to point out kind of as an education to you before we wrap up tonight. There is a guy, there's a gentleman by the name of Timothy Snyder. He is a professor of history. And if you've been with me, if you're my audience, you know I'm a history guy. I'm an old history teacher myself. Not at this level with this guy. I've got a big ego and I'm comfortable knowing that there are people that have done it better or more. That is where my ego is at. I've got a big ego. So I can acknowledge when somebody's really badass and really good at what they do. Timothy Snyder, Yale University, history professor, history instructor, and very, very, very prolific author of books on history and other capacities. The last book I read, there's another one that's just come out, but the last one I read of him is called On Tyranny. And I'm bringing them up because I'm recommending it to you. Some of you watch shows, you listen, you pay attention to podcasts, you watch the news. I've said and stated on this show innumerable amount of times, innumerable amount of times, there is no substitute for the written word and reading it in lieu of or instead of just listening to a show, listening to a podcast, watching someone instead of reading someone. It's a different cognitive work, but you lose a lot when you stop reading. I don't think I have to go too far there. I think you know that to be true. So I'm asking you to continue to do so for your sake, not mine. I'm asking you to because it's the right thing to do. Continue to read. So I'm going to bring this up because the book is called On Tyranny, as it sounds, the spelling, On Tyranny, by Professor of History Timothy Snyder. It is an awesome book on autocracies, dictators, and governments that move toward and away from democracy. And cannot be any more apropos than right now. And he wrote this a number of years ago. It's not brand new. He wrote another one like as a sequel to that, and I've got to follow up with that myself. But the book in particular is called On Tyranny. I'll give you this last little aside with it. It's a very, very quick read. It's not very long, but potent as all hell in the delivery and the content of the material that he's getting to you, that he wants you to know, to understand, and to learn from. I'll recommend it to anybody. And again, it's not a very long read. It's you can knock it out pretty quick. Not a lot of, it's not like, Dostoevsky or, War and Peace by Tolstoy. 1,000 plus. Read that a couple times. But this one is not. It is potent in its content, potent in its delivery, and potent in his communication to you of the importance of how we lose democracy, how democracy goes away, and how others take its place in the wrong way. Timothy Snyder, On Tyranny. He made a comment yesterday after he saw the comments by the president. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. Those are the words of the president of the United States. Genocidal. A whole civilization. Never mind that it would be a loss to humanity, because they are, whether you like them or not, they are one of the oldest civilizations and one of the progenitors for many other civilizational aspects of who we are as a people today. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back. These are not, and I'm quoting from Mr. Snyder, who I have a massive respect and appreciation for as an educator and as an intellect. These are not the words of Hitler or Stalin or Mao or Pol Pot or Assad or Putin. These are the words of the President of the United States today, right now, as we're watching, as we're viewing, as we are engaged in this mess. Do not be distracted by the circumstances. Of course, there are emotions, personalities, politics, a war. None of this excuses that sentence. The reason we have a notion of genocide and a convention on genocide, the Geneva Convention, is to define certain actions as always and definitively wrong. There's no debate here. This is not left or right, Republican, Democrat. My side, your side, my tribe, your side. There is right and there is wrong. Genocide, bad. Get it? Being a little Philistine on you. Genocide, not good. So when you have a president saying and talking genocidally, then it is objectively not good. It is bad. And there's no argument or debate about it. There's no minimizing deflection. There's no projection. Bad. Simple. Not arguing with the Trump cult member. Bad. Are these only words? No, they cannot be only words. As any historian of mass atrocity knows, there is no such thing as only words. The notion of killing a whole civilization, once spoken, remains. This is not a joke. This is not a game. You don't toy around with entire civilizations of people because it's a whim, because you're a cool guy, because you're a tough guy, because you're a wannabe badass. It enables others to say similar things because he said it. We're already there with a lot of things he says, as when another elected representative compared the entire country of Iran to a cancer that had to be removed. Projection. Whatever happens tonight, and that's into today, the president, by saying such things, has already changed the world for the worse. Simple. And made acts of mass violence more likely. If we are Americans, he has also changed our country, by extension, because he is sitting in the Oval Office. He has changed us because he represents us. We voted for him, or we didn't vote for him and allowed him to come to power, or we didn't do enough to stop him. These words are America's words, until and unless Americans reject them. Yes, there have been other genocides, and there are other politicians who endorse genocide. That makes the words of the president worse, not better. Yes, the United States has undertaken atrocities before. That makes it all the more important, all the more urgent that we catch ourselves now. Neither the evil nor the good in our history determines who we are. It is what we do now. If we do not say something ourselves about this horror, we allow ourselves to be changed. Around the president, there will be people, sadly, who work deliberately to normalize the language of genocide. There will be other politicians who find the right words to reject it. One can hope that there will be politicians who find the courage to remove the man who speaks genocide from office. And those words should lead to resignations by everyone who works closely with the president. But we cannot count on politicians. This is ultimately up to us, the citizens, for our own sake, for the sake of the future of the country, for the sake of a possibility of new beginnings. We need to say something to someone else, to ourselves. This is simply wrong. Whatever happens tonight or on any other night in this war is now legally defined by the president's statement. In the practical application of the law of genocide, the Genocide Convention of 1948, the difficulty is usually in proving the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. Henceforth, the intent is on the record. In the published words of the President of the United States and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces about the death of a whole civilization. Article 3 of the Genocide Convention makes it clear that not only the person who issues the genocidal order is guilty, genocide itself is, of course, a crime, where genocide means the intent that Trump expressed, and actions such as killing members of a group, causing members of a group serious harm, or deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, which would, of course, include actions such as destroying access to energy or water, but also defined as a crime are conspiracy to commit genocide, incitement to commit genocide, attempts to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide. His words are, we're all implicit. We all have good ethical and political reasons to reject the president's words, but those who serve in government and in the armed forces have been placed under the legal shadow of genocide by what Trump wrote. To bomb a bridge or a dam or a power plant or a desalinization facility, very likely a war crime in itself in any event, could very well have a different legal significance, a genocidal one, if it takes place after the expression of genocidal intent by the commander and head of state. And that's already on record. And lastly, Snyder wrote, the concept of genocide was created by a survivor and an observer of atrocities, Raphael Lemkin, so that we could see ourselves, judge ourselves, stop ourselves. But genocide is not only a concept, it is also a crime under international law, signed by the United States in 1948 as a convention, ratified by the United States as a treaty in 1988. That makes the words I have quoted here the law of the land. The president speaks genocide, and so we too must speak, not only about crimes, but about their legal punishment. This piece is from yesterday's The President Speaks Genocide, The Words, the Law, the Future by Timothy Snyder, professor of history at Yale University. I suggest you read it for yourself. I read this piece. It was quick and easy. But Professor Snyder sums it up in a very short, brief commentary on the president's actions and words leading into today and what it means to us as a people. And I've said this before, it isn't just about him anymore. It's about us now. It's about us and who we are, what we accept, what we look away from, what we're okay with. You don't get to joke and play around and be a tough guy smartass talking about wiping out a whole civilization, even if you don't mean it, because we all know he won't do it. He doesn't have the sack or the spine to do so. And as the professor noted, doesn't matter. What matters is that he said it. It's on record and it's there. The intent is there. And anything that follows off of that intent becomes legal evidence, fact, to show what comes after is legally and morally irresponsible and should be held to account. I'll finish tonight's show. As I've said on one of my posts recently on social media, I want this president tried for crimes against the Constitution, and I want him tried for war crimes as of right now, based on what he's already done. And I want those that gave the orders that he implemented also tried for war crimes. And I don't give a shit if they're Americans like me. Because if we can't hold ourselves to standards by laws that we wrote, that laws that we signed on, 1948 and 1988, our laws, the laws of governing the world, the whole damn global order, then who the hell are we? We're just another scrub nation on the decline. I want him tried for crimes against the Constitution. I want him tried for crimes against humanity. And I don't give a shit how long I have to wait. I want it done. And you should want it done too. We should hold ourselves to the highest of standards if we're going to be what we've pretended to be for nearly 250 years. Our anniversary is coming up. And by all evidence to this point, as I wrap up tonight, we as a people, after 250 years, a quarter of a millennium of existence, have in essence become what we started a revolution against. One individual that has the ability and the power to do or say whatever the hell they want and make us do it. That is what we revolted against. And that is what I revolt against now. I ask you to join me and do the same. Thank you very much. We'll be back on Thursday. Let's pray that it gets better as much as it can. You have a good one. See you Thursday.